Hello guys, this is Shining Noctiles, and tonight I wanted to do a video that I think is something that... Oh, kitty cat. It's okay. Something that should be, that I feel like is really important to speak about, and I think, um, um, kind of this idea for this video that I had was kind of formulated when I started playing Skyrim last tonight, and in the game, usually when you encounter an animal, it's usually a pretty intimate experience where the animal, usually just charges at you and it just will keep attacking you, kind of like in kind of a robotic fashion. And I think I think um, it seems like there are people out there, and even living in North Idaho, there are a fair amount of people that are really afraid of wild animals. Whether it be cougar, bears, wolves, but even like moose and deer. And I think you have to recognize that in a real world setting, when you encounter these animals, they're not as aggressive or as prone to attacking you as it's pictured in a game like Skyrim. Um, when I've encountered animals in the wild, like a 10-foot mama moose, a couple bears, deer, they... If you learn how to handle the situation peacefully with them, they don't really go after you, and I think, while there's nothing, wrong, um, nothing wrong that nothing wrong about nothing wrong with eating meat or plants or fungi for sustenance. I think the reason why a lot of people are afraid, especially of wild animals, is because, especially when they look at a predator like a wolf, a cougar, or a bear, they kind of see a reflection of themselves, You know, there has to be a sense of humility when you connect with another animal. And in some spiritual faiths, unfortunately, they teach others that animals have no souls, and I think that's why some people are so afraid, because when they think of animals as soulless creatures, it's really a reflection of themselves. Because animals, at their deepest core, is a reflection of our own inner primal energies. And I think when a person thinks a cougar, a wolf, a bear, or even a moose, when they think they're soulless, it creates fear, and I think people need to recognize these other animals do have hearts, and they can connect just like we do. That's why whenever I eat something, whether it's animal, plant, or fungi, because plants feel too, but whenever I feel like I see the spirit of the animal I'm eating, whether it's turkey, you know, chicken, ham, things like that. I try to give peace to the animal that died because there has to be a sense of humility, a sense of gratitude that what you're eating and what was killed, you know, is part of your sustenance, you know, and you know, Cernunnos is both the hunted and the hunter, and you have to be humble enough to thank what you're eating and to be grateful for what you're receiving. That's why when I go to grocery stores, when I try to buy things, whether it's vegetables or meat, I try my best to find things that are like no hormones, no steroids, no RSBT, no steroids, non-GMO, because I think while there's nothing wrong with having food for sustenance, it's important to treat whatever eventually passes for our sustenance to be treated better, you know, and because it is a reality that we have to eat in order to survive. Whether it's meat, plant, fungi, we have to eat something in order to survive. And something will have to die in order for there to be sustenance. But regardless of that truth, I think it's still important to be kind to what you're eating. Be kind to the sustenance you're receiving. And when you meet a wild animal, like when I met the moose, she was a pretty big moose, around 10 feet tall. But I just looked at her, she looked at me, you know, she drank some water from the stream and just went up the trail, and I think that even if I ever, you know, met a wolf or a cougar or another bear again in close quarters, that I could handle the situation the same I did with that moose. And if it comes to the point where I have to fight with my stick, I will, but I would prefer to handle the situation with peace and with understanding, because those animals also are trying to protect themselves too. And I think especially in the wild, it's important to respect their natural habitat, respect that you are, even though the forest may be your second home, that it is also their home as well. And you just have to learn how to interact with one another peacefully, like some people try to do with one another. And there are people, you know, who when they go into the forest, they'll usually get in my case when I walk down the trail, and they say, "Why aren't you carrying a gun? Why aren't you carrying bear spray? Why aren't you carrying this? Why aren't you carrying that?" And I just tell them, I just don't feel like I need it. I've been walking in the forest, at least in the Canfield Mountain in Idaho, for around 20 years. And I just don't feel like I need those tools in dealing with animals. And we have to be kind, because we have to be kind because we have to see the inner soul of the animal. Look into its eyes. Whether it's a moose, whether it's a bear, whether it's a wolf, whether it's a cougar, whether it's a deer. Recognize what's there. Have some humility think it's very important. And you know, there was a person I met when I was hiking on the uh, Thompson Pass. It was a border between Idaho and Montana. And there was this man who said, "Man, animals should fear men. They shouldn't have the courage to keep stalking or following a person." As if they saw it as a threat, and I think I just I don't believe animals are truly like that, at least from what I've encountered in the real world. Um, and I think people have um, they can have this fear about them, but I think it's also because, see, for the Celtic people, Cernunnos was half beast, half human. He was human, but he's also a beast. And I think what happened in Europe is when the Romans were trying to civilize um, all of Europe, I think they saw the wildness of the Celtic people, and even the Vikings to an extent, as sort of animalistic, sort of um, savage. But I think taking away that identity and taking away that connection to nature, it really has caused people to have a bit of a disconnect with animals and with nature in general. And I think you just have to be humble, because I think what happened with some of the Romans is they exalted themselves too much, where they felt like some of them may have felt like they were above everyone else, and with the religion they were trying to teach, at least in some ways they tried to teach it, I believe it caused a disconnect. And I think when Cernunnos was demonized as, Satan by the Romans and the church, I feel like that caused a lot of issues, because now people saw the wild and the primal as evil, as something that you should never connect with, and I think as taboo. And I feel like that it caused a problem, because when you strip away the wildness or the animal part of someone, you're all you may have left is an empty vessel. And I think if more people could recognize how to, and especially in the wild, how to handle situations with other animals, not with fear, but with strength and with humility, and learning how to connect with the other animal in a more peaceful and constructive manner. I feel like it's okay, kitty. Just my kitty meowing. I think it would bring a lot of peace. Really, I really do. I really do think that. And in Skyrim, there is a dragon call called Keon's Peace that will soothe the animals around you, which I think is a good thing. Just, it kind of sucks it doesn't recharge as fast as I'd like it to, but I just think you have to be willing to see the beast externally and see the beast internally and see how you can bring peace to it. I think the reason why people are so afraid of horned beings or of beings that are more animalistic, because it's something that people have tried to put into the shadows, and they have to recognize that that beast or that animal that they may be afraid of is also them, and there has to be a sense of humility, a sense of bringing peace to it as well as yourself. And whenever an animal is killed, whether you did it or someone else did it, when you partake in eating the meat that has been provided for you, it's important to be humble enough, grateful enough to thank what has been killed for your sustenance, whether it's animal or meat, plant, fungi, because all forms of nature have souls, and there was a time when wolves were eradicated in Yellowstone, and due to that there was an overpopulation of elk because there were no predators left. When with the overpopulation of elk, the vegetation started to run dry, and the elk started to starve, and the vegetation of the land became sparser and sparser. So people have to recognize that predators like the wolf or hunters, even though they may not be liked by many individuals because of their nature, they're an important force of nature that has to be there in order to bring balance. And I think animals are, they're probably not used to, especially wild animals, they're probably not used to a person being kind to them. It's probably why they tend to get aggressive or hostile in the first place. Because of how the previous interactions may be with humans. But if you can show that you have a little bit of humility and willing to see them, be kind to them, even if they are killed for sustenance, you have to be kind, because they feel too, you know. And again, same with plants, same with fungi. There has to be a level of kindness and forgiveness, and to just really be thankful. And I hope as time goes on, other people will recognize this. Recognize, just like how the Native Americans and Celtic people and even the Norse people did, that even though they were hunters and even though they killed, for, hunted animals, and as well as gathered berries and stuff like that, they did it not because they saw it as a sport per se. They did it because it was for their sustenance. And I think it's important. And even for people who are vegetarians and vegans, even if they don't eat meat but they eat plants and fungi, still, you have to show a little level of humility that you show the animals or meat that you may consume, because they also feel too, you know. When I go into the forest and I see that some of the trees dying, I try to give good energy to them, you know. So, no matter what you're eating, I think it's important to be grateful for all that you eat. Sorry about that. There has to be there has to be you have to be kind. I know I'm kind of pausing at times, but this is a very deep message to share. And I'm glad things are going to the right direction. When I go to the grocery store and see things like no steroids, no RSPT, no hormones, no GMO, I think it's a step in the right direction. And even though nowadays things have changed and a lot of people aren't hunters anymore, you know, regardless of whether you hunt or it is hunted for you, it's important to be kind. Or whether you gather it or whether it's gathered for you. You have to be kind. And a lot of people, they just don't want to, it's hard for them to step down because they have to face those things, and it can be hard for some people, but it's important to talk about it, because when you're able to handle it a little bit more with grace and not always with aggression, hostility, I believe it can really help. Really, I do. So, whenever you see an animal again, or plant, fungi, or you're eating, just try to be a little bit more grateful of just what's sustaining you. Just be a little bit kinder, you know, to nature and to the animals and plants and fungi that live there. I think that would help a fair amount. And even if you're not an outdoors person, because I know not everyone's into nature or outdoors, but even still, you know, I still think even people who, you know, aren't outdoorsy, I think the message can still connect with them. Anywho's, guys, I think that's gonna be it for now. It was a very deep message, but I hope you guys found this a little bit insightful, you know. Anyways, guys,